that and get a menu. But that's maybe right down there. Yeah, I mean, you don't have options. So.
We still got a couple people unidentified.
Get out.
Unknown iPhone, and then 940-453-6076.
We can also hear someone having a conversation. If that's you, we don't have you described. You need to tell us who you are so we can rename you.
I think it's Randy. He's coming in, he's trying to get in properly. Click on that window.
How about Brian? Where is Brian?
Start video. Yeah, took forever to get the dots up. I don't know where they're at. I know, they weren't there before. I couldn't find it. Didn't know what I was looking for either. You knew what you were looking for.
Okay, I see all board members, but I don't see Brian. And then we have a couple of extra ones, maybe 3 extra ones.
If you aren't showing your face, you need to identify yourself, or we're gonna have to figure out who you are before we start.
Leanne, where is Brian? Is he on?
Gotta be one of those.
I would assume he's one of the 3, but
It says community manager.
That's me.
Leanne.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I see Brian's name now.
Yeah, he's coming up.
His dots may not show up.
There he is.
All right, hey Brian. So
Good
Leanne,
afternoon.
I suggest dropping the other 3 that we don't know who they are.
okay, I'm gonna go ahead and enable waiting room. So anyone that gets dropped, when you, oh, there's Scott. Anyone that gets dropped, you're just gonna have to wait for a second till I can allow you in, but the others I'm gonna drop because I don't know who they are.
Is Sam up at the lodge?
Yeah.
Okay.
One of those may have been Crystal.
Oh, that's right.
I don't think she's attending. She asked to roll out of here at 4:30. I said, you and I and Scott will, take the resolutions that come out of this meeting and, get them together.
Steve, can you mute? Can you mute? So it's not talk?
I'm hearing it. I thought it was.
Okay, I think we're all here. So I see it's 4 p.m. So I'm going to go on
There's
and
Sam. Okay.
call the meeting to order. We have all board members accounted for, plus Brian and Scott and Leanne. So there's Scott. Hey, Scott. So we got a quorum. So item number 1 or number 3 on our agenda then is for Kathy to give us an update on COVID. If there's anything we need to be doing.
Hello, can everybody hear me? Nothing has really changed very much since my report that I gave a week ago Monday. Lake Kiowa dropped a little bit, but they haven't put out anything new since last Friday. I was hoping to maybe see a new report prior to coming to this meeting, but they don't have anything posted yet.
No.
So,
And then for the recommendation that the staff is recommending is to continue to follow the governor's guidelines on the 50% and not going to the to-go only. We had a lengthy conversation about it, but felt that at this point, the awareness of the risk and reward, people make the decision to, use the lodge, use different facilities. That's kind of on them, and we're providing a service. So it's at this time, I'm not recommending that we go to only or any sort of shutdown at this point. On a personal level, it appears as if the staffing casualties reached the low ebb and starting to come out of that. That isn't necessarily the right way to make a decision, but that is the reality. David continues to not be here under quarantine, and he has a 6th test that he'll be taking tomorrow.
Okay,
Rick, I think if anything changes drastically, I'll just send out email notification to everybody and we can make a call should something change drastically. And of course, if Abbott was to publish any changes, I'll get those out immediate. So I watch it pretty close.
great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody got any questions for Kathy O'Brien? Okay, let's jump on into the North Star thing, the primary reason for this call. Kathy, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, I can do that. I think everybody, Jim, was copied on pretty much all of the documents you sent out, correct? Jim Adams? All of us got, yeah. So everybody should have gotten a couple of spreadsheets. We had some verbiage back and forth on some of the outstanding items. We did not get any legal changes from North Star. We didn't ask for a lot, but we did ask for some. And they understand where we're coming from, that the service agreement and the hosting agreement need to align with each other, which they don't today. So I would definitely recommend that we have further conversations from a legal standpoint. And Brian, I know you sent out something about the attorney, but I would rather get new drafts before we bring him in so he's not wasting his time and costing us money to reword things we know we want reworded. But then we would also, of course, they gave us a couple of options on cost. We have not done any negotiations, and that is still left to do. But we had asked for potentially if we chose to buy the software versus do a subscription. But I think the cost came back pretty high. I'm not a fan of buying software anymore, but certainly if that was a better long-range plan, I would definitely support it. But what the numbers I saw, I'm not comfortable with it.
I want to say thank you to Jim for bringing that really out as an option. It kind of caught, I think, North Star a little bit, maybe flat-footed is a little harsh, but they're like, our business model is 90-some percentile in the subscription world. And he had done some calculations that were actually turned out to be pretty darn close to what the actual cost would be if we said, okay, we want to own it all, guarantee the upgrades for the next 5 years. And it's, a big number. But when you do the 5-year scenario, it's not so good. But as he said, listen, after 5 years, they're going to start doing really, really well, making a lot of money on this particular account. I don't begrudge a profit for anyone. But conversely, in terms of our cash flow and how our operation works, I think Kathy and I are in alignment there that, yes, the subscription scenario is probably the path we'll go. There might, in fact, be a opening for a little more negotiation on this, that it wasn't ruled out when the three of us and the North Star representatives were on the phone. They didn't say this is the final in last term. They're pretty savvy guys, and it's going to take a little bit more. But at this point, I don't know, Jim, if you'd like to speak up in terms of reservations you may have had and some answers that were given, as well as maybe some that are still outstanding.
Sure. One of the key points I was trying to make.
He's Jim, you're muted.
You're muted.
Mute, sir.
Okay, a couple of points I was trying to make is, one, on the purchase agreement that they provided us, they didn't give us the same discounts that they gave in the subscription, and they should, because we're switching from Abacus, so it's the same deal. So my apples and apples comparison on the spreadsheet I sent really isn't quite apples and apples for a 5 and 10 year plan, because the discount's not factored in there. And if you factor the discount in, it helps the purchase somewhat. The other point that I'm trying to get across, and I think we should strongly negotiate, and maybe Kathy and Brian can say the board's just not going to accept it unless we do this. I think it's very imperative that when you do a subscription contract, typically in the market, you're not obligated beyond a month or even maybe a year. And that's one of the advantages to the buyer, is that they get a lower entry point, and they also can get out of the agreement at some point. It's an incentive to the vendor to do a good job. And then the upside for the vendor is, once we get past year 3, 4, 5, or probably around 4 or 5 years, they're making a ton of money. I mean, and then year 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, it's just writing it. They're just sending it to the bank, really. So I say it's most imperative that we get them to do that and hold them to, and say, we're not going to do this unless you, have a month-to-month term, or maybe a year-to-year term. And that lets them know we're holding our feet to the fire each year. And then at 5 years, we can go our own way. Not that we want to. I think they'll do a great job. I really think this is the right software. I'm just trying to say the terms of the agreement. And then, as Kathy mentioned earlier, there's a lot of little things in the agreement: limitation of liability, conflicts between hosting and subscription. They just use words incorrectly in several places, but those things become important if you ever have, fences make good neighbors. And if the fence isn't right, then we're going to have a problem down the line if the neighbors get out of control. So I think we need to make sure we fix several of those things.
So Jim or Kathy or Brian, do you think they're open to such changes? Or are we small potatoes to them, where they might just say our way or the highway? I don't know. What's your opinion on our ability to actually sway such changes?
They said that they never do that. They also said that they don't change they had an escalator on the maintenance rates. So that's another thing in their subscription agreement that I don't agree with, is they have a escalator, which Brian got them to agree after 3 years, to limit that to going up after 3 years. But in a subscription agreement, you don't do that again. That's not typical in the marketplace. You just leave the same price in there. And now you can build that escalator inside the payment plan that they've built, but to say outright, we're going to raise your price on your subscription, that's not typical, I would say. So the point is, they said they don't do that, and then they quickly did it when Brian and Kathy and I pushed back. I think if we told them the board's just not going to do this deal if you don't do a couple of these things, they will do it. I promise you, we're not small potatoes. This is a $500,000 contract for 5 years, and I don't care what kind of company you are. If you're in a local government and a POA business, that's a big deal, I promise you. They don't do a lot of these things that are $500,000. So I think we have a lot of leverage.
Sam?
And to follow up with Jim's comment, there was another voice in the room, Mr. Applewhite, who is really the kind of Southwest guy for North Star, and he spearheads the business development, and his big carrot are private clubs, and they've just tipped their toe into HOAs and POAs. I mean 5-6 years, not yesterday. And he has indicated that this is what we need. We don't have a crown jewel, his words, not mine, a crown jewel in the POA market that we can say we have a great success, because the ropes and ranch guys, there was some hits and miss on both sides, candidly. And they learned from that on their side. The ropes and ranch people, candidly admitted they underestimated, time on, education and rollout. So I think we're at an advantageous position in terms of a relationship, that this is in fact a very doable deal, and they want to make it happen. There's not a sense of free card money at all. No. Sam, can you unmute?
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
I know that Kathy and all of you have done a lot of work on this, but looking at it from a bylaw standpoint, should we not have sent out an RFP to try to get other companies to bid on this? It's pretty clear that we don't count them as a vendor, North Star, because the bylaws are pretty clear in this that something like this, we should get an RFP to get others. I know, just like Brian said, there are other companies. And are we getting the best deal for all of it, the money wise, for what we're wanting to do?
Yeah, Kathy, you can answer that, because I think that was done. Go ahead.
Can Kathy unmute?
Sam, what section
I
are
hate
you
when that
referring to?
happens. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
But we looked at alternative software. We've been to 3 different companies. It's very difficult to put in a RFP every business process you're using your IT systems for. And that's what you would have to do. To document it to that degree, you're going to pay somebody who is very good at processes and have them document what TOPS does, what our website does. We're trying to get software that's going to help security and maintenance and places that our entities that don't have anything but a notebook and a number 2 pencil. And how are we going to document those processes when they're all manual? Same thing in the kitchen. And everything we're doing is pretty standard in the restaurant industry, in the HOA, POA world. The accounting, we do accounting pretty much the way everybody else does it, other than lot number is kind of unique to our industry. So to do that effort would take months to do an RFP to that degree, unless we just listed the name of the software. But we've looked at all the big players. We made sure Scott had met with several of them a couple of years ago when he went to one of the HOA, POA industries conferences in Florida, and Florida's kind of mecca. So is Arizona for HOAs and POAs. So we've vetted about everything we know to vet. And this one just has far more because they've been acquiring a lot of the systems we were looking at, like Chelsea, and they're doing best of breed is what it looks like to me. They're looking at those niches. We want the best GL. We want the best Chelsea. We want the best thing for security. And they've gotten ahead of everybody putting them together. But I understand what you're saying. According to the bylaws, that was a surprise when I found that. And I was looking for something else and just ran across it. But this isn't, bringing in companies to clean the floors or things you could easily put out for an RFP. You just don't do software like that.
Sam?
Sam, what section in the bylaws were you referring to? Just so I make
That's
sure.
on page 7.
I think it was H.
Page 7, paragraph H.
Okay, I'm gonna just give a point of reference. I'm not sure. I think this is up to interpretation. I'm not totally sure I agree with everything Kathy said about RFPs. I think typically in government situations, again, I think anytime you purchase something, you do an RFP. It doesn't matter if it's software, and you do put your requirements together and you go through that process. I know we may not follow all governance. I'm just speaking, but we're a nonprofit and we are somewhat like a government. But when you do a service, oftentimes you don't have to do an RFP because it's a service and you can only acquire that from professional people that can have special requirements. But this section, and I actually talked to some prior board members who had history on this, they said they thought that section was referencing, and if you'll notice, outsourcing. It says for ongoing member services from outside vendors outsourcing. And they said the reference was really when once before they were trying to outsource the lodge kitchen, so to speak, and then there was a big uproar, and the community didn't want that, so they put this. That was a reaction to it. But if you guys interpret it differently, I want to make sure we follow the rules, and I would be more comfortable if it was a service, which I think subscription is a service, and if they go along with our terms, then I'll be for it. I think I see that interpretation, but if it was a purchase, I for sure think we should bid it. But I'm open to everybody's view of the interpretation. Does anybody know if there's any place else where it talks about RFPs? I thought there was more than one spot.
I'd have to look it up. No, I'm in agreement, Kathy, as far as doing this. I know it needs to be done. However, even looking back, if it's such a high priority, why didn't we do planning in a planning document? We didn't do any kind of budget. It's not in the budget to do it. I know it's all of a sudden we've got it real quick. We've got to do this. I don't know how bad it is, but I just feel that we just taking one company is I don't think is a good plan. We did that with the pavilion. I know we didn't go back out and get bids, and in turn we're doing the same thing with this, spending a lot of money for a system that we don't know if other people could do the same thing for us. I know looking today, I was looking at other companies online that possibly could do the same thing.
Kathy?
We'll say if I'm North Star and you come back and tell me I'm bidding, my price just went up.
Yeah.
I'm doing that for sure.
We have looked at numerous software. We've looked at ABDI for the gates. We've looked at TOPS for the financial system. We have looked at several POS systems. We have done all that. They sell this much, they don't sell this much. They do one or two functions. They don't do them all. And so then we have to pay developers to write the code so these systems will talk to each other. Because every system just about that we utilize has to have that information about our members. And to get to that part of the database, you've got to do custom interfaces. That's when it gets real expensive. But we've looked at all the gate systems. That's why we went to Pecan Plantation. We've got a quote that's in the gatehouse bid. I've lost track of where it's at. And I, for the last 4 years, have provided long-range planning and Charlie a potential cost for replacing the GL and given them everything I was asked to give. I think the gentleman's name was Don Knox. I did it in 2020. I did it in 2019, 2018. And TOPS was the #1 for IT to fix for the last 4 years. So I don't know what happens. I was never a part of long range planning, but I know they would call me every year and I'd give them my spreadsheet for the projects that we needed to get done for the membership.
Other question, I had original briefing, I think that Leanne gave us, and Brian, the figure was what, 144,000? I think that PowerPoint that we had there, now we're up to what, 178,000? Is that correct?
Well, Brian included what you pay month to month. And typically when you're doing software as a service, you show your run rate, but you wouldn't include that in the first year with your cost of implementation and hardware and training and all of the things that go into that original project. So Brian, you may be able to speak better to that PowerPoint sheet.
It did. The figure was landing on about 112, 113,000, including a 1099 project manager, which we also found out might be a little bit rich in terms of the estimate, but that would also factor in enough of a contingency. But no, Sam, you're right. It's to the point of the first month's monthly fee, and then on an ongoing basis, it'd be coming right out of O&M, as it currently is now. It'd be apples and apples.
Can I say something?
Jim?
Oh, sorry.
You're muted, sir. Okay.
Yeah, okay. Now, if you go back to the spreadsheet, the subscription option of, it shows a year one subscription option of $64,740. That's the number we'll actually pay them for a service in 1 year. It was whatever the monthly number is times 12. There was hosting charges of $650 a month, which comes to $7,800. And there is actually one-time cost, including Brian's $18,500. I think I even raised the numbers, 18,000 or to 20 and maybe 10 from hardware up from what it was to 10. If you'll go look at that other spreadsheet I sent, and that's a one-time cost of 91,000. What Brian or Leanne showed you the other night was a mix of one year numbers and a mix of annual numbers, and it doesn't add up to anything that it really should, if you ask me. So I went back and put it all in a spreadsheet, and you'll look at it on that other spreadsheet that I sent that's not shows subscription and purchase examples, but the other one, and you'll see a one-time cost numbers of 91,300. And you can project that over any plan that we do, whether you purchase it or subscribe to it, you're going to have to pay those professional services and that hardware one time. And I think that was about $68,000 in training and their project management. It was a $2,000 is included in that for the hosting setup. And there's our 18,000 project manager, and it's right now my made up number of about 10,000 at what, because I had a spreadsheet from Kathy in the past. It was like $7,500 or something. And I was raising it just to be safe. And
Okay, well, let's clarify those. Jim, can I ask you a question? You said something just sort of in passing. You said you thought if we required an RFP of North Star or required a bid from them, their price would go up. Is that what I heard you say? And if so, why?
Well, because an RFP is a lot of work to fill out an RFP. I mean, it's going to be work, as Kathy said, it would be work on our behalf to create one. And I wouldn't say what I would do if I was going to go create one on our behalf, I'd go find another POA that's done one and copy theirs and then modify it and have our staff modify it. But that would take us a calendar months, at least 2 or 3 calendar months to probably do. But once North Star receives it, they know now we're delayed longer. They know they have to fill that thing out, and they know they're in a competitive situation, and they know what the market is. They're going to bump it up as high as they can go and still get away with it because they don't want to do that work. And I know I've done this, and that's what I did. And, you know, if I could sell you directly without having to go RFP, you got a better deal. But that's up to, we can take that chance. And I don't want to break the RFP rule really. So I just think we ought to really dig into what that really says and what it means.
Jim Fox?
Is there any need to get a legal opinion from James Tidwell on our bylaws, on what we should really need to be doing from a purchasing standpoint?
Yes, that would be my
I
recommendation
agree.
to my board, yes. And the reason I sent him some of the preliminary was the fact that this was really the first time that there was proposal A of subscription and proposal B of purchase, and the nuances and the difference of it. So to Kathy's point earlier, we haven't received from North Star what they would propose as a final or fourth draft of their contract, because we made it very clear that legal has to give its stamp of approval before the board, before Rick or I would sign anything. And they understood that. They were fine with that, and they were willing to do what they could within, you know, their company realm. But I wanted to get it over to Jim Tidwell as soon as possible, because there's going to be a couple revisions on this and some recommendations, including, are we overcompensating on insurance? Are we doing a couple things? And then to the bylaw part, he will make a recommendation. Now, if he comes down and he says, you guys got to run an RFP, we're back to square one. So far, he hasn't said that, but I need to ask him that specific question to make sure that that is vetted and viewed. And, you know, typical attorney talk, he'll probably give us some elastic terms on, well, you can do kind of what the hell you want, but.
A couple of other questions I guess I have. Is there accounting differences from a tax standpoint or whatever between an upfront purchase versus an annual service? And then what is the time factor, time value of money considered in it? I realize we're not investing our funds or anything right now, but still there's a time value of money of not paying it all up front. So have we thought about those things?
Clark, can you chime in here at all and give broad stroke?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that question.
You didn't hear my question?
Right.
Oh, okay. Are there accounting differences and tax differences if we take the software as a service, an annual service, versus an upfront purchase that we need to be aware of?
There is a difference in the way that you would account for it. I'm not sure it's going to make a whole lot of difference from a cash flow standpoint. If you bought something, you would capitalize it. But at the same time, we are capitalizing this 68.8 plus 10 plus. So we're going to be capitalizing what, 80 something
90,
thousand,
about 90
anyway.
Yep. Yeah.
And so, and that's your upfronts. And then from your O&M is your monthlies that go out thereafter, which, as Brian showed you the other day, there's about a $1,200 savings there per month based on what we're currently paying TOPS and the other service. But that's an expense. That's like rent. Okay, so that's a pure expense through your O&M. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. I just want to make sure we're thinking about those things. And then at some point, and maybe it was an email, Jim Adams raised the question, about the $400,000 cap on our board decisions. How does the fact that this is a service versus, we're not out there building a new building or something like that. Does that come into play at all in anybody's opinion?
I guess, you can think about that from, if you bought it and you committed to spending that much money, yes, I would think that would be so. However, if, like Jim was talking earlier, if we're on an annual contract, then I don't see that plan. And your monthly is kind of like a lease under an annual contract. I don't see that plan.
Right. That's for the reason why I was saying that we should not be held to 60 months, because then it is a purchase and then we would have to bid it out.
Got it.
Or we would have we for sure have to bid it out, and then we have different counting and all that too.
Correct.
I was going to add that you asked about time value of money, and I didn't put that in there or anything, but I did in the purchase version. I did show financing just that down, the purchase price and the down of that 91,000 plus the software price 171,000, which was like 200 something thousand. I gave various versions of that, and I financed it at 4 and 5% options, which I don't know if that's a valid interest rate for buying software right now, but we could go borrow money, I know. So it's somewhere in that neighborhood, I would guess.
Okay, so where are we? Are we, Brian, what do you think? Are we ready to make some type of decision? Are you seeking authorization now to continue to negotiate with North Star?
Correct. How we left it with Jim and Kathy and I on the last call after the North Star guys kind of were there and listening is it would be desirous to have the board support and authorization to continue the finalization of the negotiation of the contract predicated on the board still signing it. You're not giving me the authority to sign anything, but move into the last stages of negotiation, keep the board informed. Basically, we've set it up where we've turned the heat up on them to, all right, we're looking at options. This is where we're going. I don't think it's going to take much for them to think about what Jim just said earlier. If we go out to, bid on this thing, add 90 days. That may not be a bad thing, but what I believe Kathy and I need is the fact that we want the board support on a move forward basis. So once we get closer to the contract and Mr. Tidwell reviews it, gives it a thumbs up, and if he gives thumbs down, that's an easy path. We know what to do there. But if it's a thumbs up, indicate to them, okay, start preparing for mobilization. The board reviews the contract, the attorney approves it, Rick, you sign it, I sign it, away we go, and that could be January 5, January 10. But I do feel that these, they want to land the account. And to Jim's point again, he's right. It's a $500,000 account. So in your head, if you're thinking this is beyond that 400, yeah, but it's stretched over, that would be, 5-year account. So who's ever getting the commission on this deal, that's what they're looking at.
What about the issue though about the RFP? Can we give you contingent authority to do so, provided our attorney says our bylaws are not a barrier to that?
The POA's attorney supersedes a decision I or your community manager would make. Absolutely. So if he comes back, and I won't be here Christmas Eve, says, that don't fly, you as the board, go that track, and that's fine. But we've already kind of set that up, and we'll get that question posed, and we'll get an answer. We'll get it in writing. So each and every one can say, okay, no, we vetted it. And it might very well be we need to do, 3 or 4 companies for an RFP, or at least put out an RFP and see if you get a couple of companies.
There's somewhere in some rule or RFP somewhere that says we have to get 3 prices for something that's over a certain amount. I don't know. I can't seem to find it right now. I keep looking, but I thought if we
typically-
had that section,
You're
if we
right.
had that
It's
section,
in
we
H,
could,
it's 250,000. It's
Okay.
right there.
yeah, but
It's in H.
yeah, that's what that says in the one we just read. I agree.
Yeah,
But it also said that we should get 3 bids, and there's a rule that said we should get 3 bids somewhere, and that's not stated in section H of 7.03H. It doesn't talk about 3 bids, and there's some other rule that talks about a minimum of 3 bids over a certain amount. And because I think if we got that one, we could compare and contrast and show what the intent of the bid rules are, because this one may be intended for outsourcing, and the 250,000 is really for, it says if it goes over 250,000, you have to go to 2/3 member of the vote. And again, they were trying to prevent outsourcing of like security or the lodge or golf course maintenance or something like that. That's what I heard. So
And
I know there's
typically it
another
comes
section.
in with like trash removal and things of those big contracts. And more candidly, ladies and gentlemen, getting 3 companies of value for such as trash is very hard, because the mega ones, they're not going to give you the time of day. It better be someone local who has the equipment in their backyard to do the service. So I've been in situations where I've gone to my board with 2 vendors and a vacant third, and the board's accepted the bids and made their decision accordingly.
Well, I think we'd get 3 proposals, and if we did an RFP and we only got 2, then we could select from the 2, and that's legal. But again, I was just trying to point out that I think there's another section, and if we find the 2, it might clarify some things for us. So we can I agree with what Rick was saying, that if we could make it contingent upon somebody reviewing the bylaws and getting legal opinion, then they could move forward with negotiations with the concepts that we put forward, or the bottom line that we put forward.
Bam.
Yeah, I would not have a problem at all. Once we run it by the attorney says that, hey, no, you can do that, I don't have a problem with it.
Okay, are we ready to make a motion? Okay, Kathy, would you make the motion predicated on that prior approval from the attorney on the no need for an RFP?
Yes, I would like to make a motion to continue to work with North Star, requiring contractual changes between all the agreements that are involved, negotiation of cost, and research on the bylaws to confirm which rules we need to follow.
And removal of the term.
What?
And removal of the return requirement.
The removal of the return requirements.
Explain that one, Jim.
At 60 months, they're requiring us to do a 60-month term on the subscription, which is really a purchase if they do that.
If we go to subscription, it just needs to be month to month, and we give them 30-day notice. We make sure we've got our data coming back to us within a 30-day period of time if we were going to move on to someone else. Those are typically how software as a service works, not a term contract like software. So that's what we want to push North Star to do for us.
Can we either restate that motion or somebody write it out?
Aren't you recording?
Well, that's fine, but I still don't know what the recording's gonna mean. So.
All right.
Leanne, are you recording? Okay.
Yes.
Bless you.
Thank you.
Do we have a second? Yeah, so Randy Romine second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Or raise a hand. Let's see. Okay, I think all the board members voted yes. Anybody opposed? Okay, so motion passes. Whatever that motion was. Whatever Jim and Kathy interpret that motion to have been between the two of them. Thank you.
All right.
Anything else on North Star before we move on? Okay, next item is the community survey. Jim Adams.
Okay, I've shared with you guys an email that we hit a little bit of a conflict when we wanted to use the voting tool. It was going to be more costly than expected. And again, maybe above what we thought would maybe be in the budget a little bit. So, and I don't like that, but the other thing was the company said, your survey's kind of long and more complex than the ones we've done, and maybe you ought to not use us. And so that just kind of told me we should go back to our other tool. The other tool, the concern was, or we were moving off of that because we could not limit it technically to one person or register it to one person. Our intentions with this, and talking to Scott and Leanne, and Kathy's even been involved, is to use the same mailing list that we would use for the voting system and load that into Constant Contact and just send the survey out to those people. And most likely they're not going to share it. If they do, we get a few extras. So that's just because we voted on this once before. I sent this by you guys in an email. It seemed like everybody's behind it, but I thought it'd be good to ratify it in a meeting here or let you guys ask questions. And I can send you a test link on the survey after the meeting. I know that I've got the committee reviewing it, but it's all been put into the new Constant Contact tool. It's pretty much ready to go. Leanne's still looking at it, and the committee's still making some final adjustments because I fat finger some stuff every now and then, but it's almost there.
Jim, how long do you think it would take the average person to fill out the survey?
Maybe 30 minutes.
Ooh.
I would say it probably would take, in the past, whatever it took in the past, add 5 minutes probably.
Kathy?
When would you want to do the survey? Is it with the election, or are you going to do it prior to the election?
We were going to do it along with the election, but we could do it sooner. I think we could be ready sooner, I think.
I think that'd almost be better than trying to get everybody to do both of them at the same time, don't you?
Yeah. We definitely don't want to send them out at the same time
Right.
and confuse people, but
Just knowing, wherever the file is at that point in time, that's who the resident is that you're going to be surveying. And it will change by the time we vote.
I'm fine with whatever you guys want to do. I just want to not wait till after the election
Right.
because we got to get the report back, get to everybody here by the summertime, and it takes a few months.
Right, to go through that. Yeah, I would like to see you do it earlier than later. Stay away from the election if possible. Thank you.
Okay. Would it be okay if it overlapped a little bit?
Yeah, because you got 30 days on the election.
I'm just saying, maybe we send it out January 15th and then go to February 15th and the election starts in February. Am I correct? Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Scott, any comment on that date, please, at this time?
My only concern is that going to be enough time to let everybody know that we're doing this survey different than our HOA, vote HOA now? I know we have to, for the this year's or next year's board election, we have to wait till January 15th to confirm the candidates. And that basically locks that down. So that is there in the bylaws, just getting ready to look at the bylaws to see if there's a line in there about how much time we actually have to give the community to roll out? And if so, does the survey have to go that 30 days, just like the board election?
So January 20th is doable. That operationally, that's my concern. I mean, of course, we'll comply with the bylaws, but operationally, can that be executed?
I think so. I'm looking that up right now. There's not a whole lot in there that talks about, just surveys, but how we have to proceed and notify the community in an amount of time. And I'm not sure on that survey side, I'm not really sure what that is just yet.
Last year, we did a 30-day window for them to take it, or 1 month window. I don't know if it was 30 days. It may have been 31, but I don't remember the notification time frame either. I don't know if that's written in anything, because it's really the committee that handles that. So we kind of are coming in behind to help the committee.
Yeah, I think that I'm looking at the long-range planning section of the bylaws, and it doesn't speak to the survey, but I know there's a rule somewhere again about the survey, and then it should be done biannually, and it may be just a rule somewhere. But I don't think it has a notice requirement. And just for the record, it will be in the communique that comes out in January, right, Leanne?
Your article will be, yes.
Yeah. So, and then we changed the article to kind of be flexible and not be locked into the vote HOA thing. So,
okay.
I think we're okay. I'll go peruse things too. If I find a rule that says we have to give 30 days notice before we do a survey, we'll do that too. But I don't think. And the surveys, it could be ready in a week. Or tonight if we all took time to edit it one more time. Scott or Leanne, somebody need to take the email list and upload it to Constant Contact, the right list, the same one that we would use for voting, but knowing that voting may still change from here to February, as Kathy was saying.
Okay, so Jim, I would suggest you just make a motion that we overturn our previous vote to do it at the same time as the election, and that you and the Long Range Planning Committee have the flexibility in working with staff to issue it as the survey as you see necessary.
I got one more thing I like to add. I do know that prior to the start of the February 1st opening of the online voting, we have basically the last minute of the hour that the election begins. With that said, we're currently seeing quite a bit of turnover in property. So January 31st is the cutoff date of basically adding that new property owner into the voting list that gets uploaded to Vote HOA now. So I know that we have to, with the board election, we have to wait up to the 31st, and then we cut it off. So I don't know if that's the same thing. I don't see anything in the bylaws that says we have to, have that same approach with the survey. Because my list.
The survey in the past has been send it out to anybody and everybody.
Okay.
You are making a valid point though, Scott, that it might be better for us just to wait till February 15th and overlap by the last 2 weeks that way we get the right list and we don't have to tell people to hurry up and get we'll just use the same list that comes out of voting, but we'll use it a couple weeks later. If you guys as a board want to wait till March 1st, I'm fine. I'd rather not, but I'm flexible on that. I just don't want to wait too long. Yes, Steve.
Steve.
Here's my biggest concern is lots of people, Constant Contact goes into spam or it goes into it's not like a normal email. When I would send them out when I was lodge manager, they'd say, I never got it. And I'd say, look in your, spam area, and there it is. So I think we're going to have to do a lot of education to make sure they understand that's where it's going. It's not, because the other one is an email that comes in as an email, and it goes to their email account. Constant Contact does not. So
I know I don't know. I'll let Leanne or Kathy talk to that. I mean, I don't know how that's getting blocked or not blocked. It's the same set of emails. We would use the same set of emails, but because it's coming from
Right.
Constant Contact versus coming from Vote HOA,
right,
you could get blocked by Vote HOA if you don't have
right,
it turned on also.
sure. Well, I'm just saying, so many people don't look at Constant Contact. So we need to really put it out there that, hey, it's coming like Constant Contact.
So Leanne could send out notices, but they would go
Right.
via Constant Contact.
Right. That's what I'm
Okay,
saying.
Leanne has her hand up. Let's see what she says.
So the current list that's in there, we have a handful of people that they still can't figure out where it's going. But for the most part, we've worked all that out. But when you add a new list, you are going to have that issue because companies like Yahoo or whatever, it can trigger a spam alert, and it'll block it from all of the emails that it goes to. So, we're just going to have to pay attention and listen, and hope for the best, because those emails that are not in there right now already as part of our other groups may have an issue. So.
Okay. Kathy?
I would say, yeah, Kathy, go ahead.
Leanne, I think that requires a conversation with Constant Contact. The reason we use them is because they're not supposed to put up filters for Constant Contact, and they're supposed to parse all of those email addresses where they don't make Yahoo think it's spam coming. So I think maybe we should touch base with them again.
So what happens is it doesn't happen all the time, but it is an occasional
onesie twosies,
trigger.
right?
Yeah, it's an
It's not
occasional
a
trigger
rash
that
of people, it's onesie twosies.
Yes.
And if you ever threw Constant Contact into your spam folder, you will never see a Constant Contact again. So some people are self-inflicting this on, with their email,
Correct.
thinking, I don't want that anymore. I'm just
Right.
going to
They
stop
don't know
it.
what it is.
Right. They just don't want to open it and deal with it. So, but I don't know what else we can do. Vote Now is not going to be an option for you. And until we get North Star, we got to deal with what we've got to deal with.
Yeah, I agree with Steve. I think if Leanne can still send out notifications through the current process and notify them that you need to make sure your address is correct and that we're going to send it out via Constant Contact in February 15th or something. And it'll give us time for her to update everybody. I think we'll be fine. Is everybody okay with February 15th instead, and give us time to educate?
But you can notify people on the message board too that the community survey's in process. So I mean, there be other ways to get the word out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just to add one last thing, what Kathy was saying, some of these do end up in spam, but this last voting regarding the cabin house there, I had probably 5 or 6 email addresses that were set up with their automatic spam notification, where I actually had to click a link to become part of their, to be able to get them to receive an HOA online vote email. I had to reply to that so that they would accept me or accept HOA online voting. So there's that to consider as well. So I think educating, having a town hall meeting, for example, talk about, hey, how the survey is going to, what we're doing and how we're going to get you access to it. Here's everything in play. However, everybody needs to, make sure their spam filters are, set up correctly so that you do receive it. If you don't, okay, here's a link or here's an email to contact us at the POA, and we'll fix that for you so that you receive it.
don't think we should have a town hall, but I agree. It's everything else you said. We'll educate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm used to town halls
Okay.
Anyway,
So let me.
I agree. I agree to that.
I'll try to, I mean, what Rick said earlier as a motion was great. I may add, I'll just make it, I'll try to say it again and as well as he said it, but I'm gonna make a motion that we overturn our previous votes on the survey and move to use constant contact and not have it align exactly with the vote process. And we will try to have that done in February 15th to March 15th timeframe. And we will educate the community as best we can up through that period.
All right, do we have a second? Steve looked like he's. Okay, discussion, Kathy, or do you have a discussion? Okay, so Steve seconding, no other input or anything? Okay, all in favor, say aye. Raise a hand. There we go. Okay, I saw 9 hands go up, so motion passes. Thank you. So we had one. Let me unmute here. So we had one question, I guess, in from a community member when they saw this posted. It says, and this is from Rusty Wilkinson, lot 810. The fines for late removal for political signs are used for what? Can they be applied to the volunteer fire department? If not, why? If they are applied to something else, can this be changed, voted on? So in general, all fines for any violations, whether it's be speeding or anything else, just goes into our general revenue funds. It's not allocated specifically for any one purpose. So I think the only funds that come in that are specifically allocated is when we sell a lot or an asset, and it has to go into the CDRF. But as far as fines and everything, just goes into our general fund, and I don't see us, allocating something specific as a fine for late removal of political signs to some specific purpose. So Brian, you have any other thoughts on that?
No, I would concur. That's where it needs to be. Don't need to change it. So,
Okay.
Love the fire department, but pretty
Right.
small money.
Right. Clark, you got a comment?
Yeah, I don't know whether this member knows this or not, but we do a lot of other things for the fire department. And quite frankly, the fines that are levied go straight to our O&M, revenue side of our O&M. But we actually contribute to the fire department every month. We also have rent them that facility for nothing. And we also provide all of the repairs to that facility for them. So it's not like we don't do a lot for the fire department. We do a whole lot for the fire department. So just making sure that member who asked that question understood all that.
Okay, appreciate that, Clark. Okay, so I guess we have no other members present, so we got more questions. So I guess we now would be going into executive session.